All right, welcome back to the Williams Elleby Howard Easter YouTube channel. I'm Joel, this is Mark. Today we want to talk about personal injuries, but in the context of construction accidents or incidents that can hurt somebody. So it sounds simple, like, hey, there's a construction site, somebody got hurt. But it's really anything but. And the first question you have to ask is, who can I sue if I've been hurt? So what are the first things you think about, Mark?
Well, first, you have to ask what kind of construction site it is, because a construction site could be at your home. It could be the type we all think of when an office is being built or something like that. So when you ask, who can I sue? It could be the general contractor on the site. It could be one of the subs on the site. It also could be a product manufacturer who, manufactured a piece of equipment that's on the site. Or sometimes it might be a contractor who's gone to a place like Home Depot or Lowe's and rented a piece of equipment that failed, and you may be able to sue them as well.
Yeah, and I think the answer to that question turns on what is the injured person's status on the property, right? Are they working there? Are they walking past a construction zone and something causes them to fall, or a tool hits them or whatever? Is it their home and they have a contractor there? Are they visiting someone's home where there's construction, that's underway? So let's talk a little bit about why that matters in the context of construction cases.
Sure. So your status depends on why you're there in the first place. And let's say you're a worker who's working for a subcontractor or the general contractor, then you're there and you might not be able to sue your own employer for negligence, because in Georgia law you only have a workers' compensation remedy. But if somebody else on the work site injures you and you're a worker and you don't work for them, then you might be able to file a personal injury lawsuit. If you're a homeowner and a general contractor comes in and does something negligent that harms you, you can have the right to sue them for that. Or if you're just walking down the street and something falls out of the sky on top of you, then you could probably sue any number of people who were responsible.
Yeah. So essentially the most common thing that we see is where it's a worker that is hurt at a construction zone and they are trying to figure out, okay, well, I work for company A, but maybe somebody with subcontractor B hit me with a car or swung the crane around and knocked something off and it hit me. However it happens to work out, they are trying to figure out what remedies do I have. And one, if it's the employer that hurt that person, then they're probably going to be limited to a workers' compensation claim. And though it's good that that's available to them, but the remedies and the damages, the money they can get is more limited. Now, if it's a third person that hurts them, then they may have a comp claim and a third-party claim, which is an ideal situation to be in for the injured person, because they have sort of much easier case to bring with limited remedies from the comp claim. But from the third-party claim, it's a much harder case to bring usually, but the remedies or the damages that are available to them are higher.
Sure, and just because you're a worker on a site doesn't mean you're limited to workers' compensation like Joel was saying. It could be a third party was responsible, but it could be also that the contracts between the general contractor and the subcontractor set up, who's responsible or who has the right to control the worker's work. And that's something we always look at to see, is there somebody else we can seek compensation from?
Yeah, in the legal terms, we call it a time, manner, and method test. Who controls the time, the manner, and the methodology of your work. So essentially, if you're injured on a construction site, there are a lot of things you need to find out about who do you work for, who injured you, the person that hurt you, who do they work for, what is your status. There's a lot of different factually specific things that must be determined to figure out who you can sue and what you can sue them for, or whether you can sue them.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about a situation where it's a third person. Say somebody has entered a construction zone and the person that hurts them, they don't work for them. Okay. What are the things that we usually look at first to see if liability may attach to that third party that hurt this person?
Well, one of the first things I always look at, has some form of government passed a rule about what is supposed to be done on a construction site. And that could be an OSHA regulation that says what you're supposed to do to keep a place safe. It could be the county that you live in or the city that you live in has passed an ordinance that says we follow this particular set of codes, and if they're not followed, then that's negligent. It could be a state rule. And so I always look at all of those different rules, where did the injury occur and what kind of injury was it, and see if one of those rules applies.
Yeah, and as much as we like to complain about having so many regulations in place in a personal injury case, a violation of a safety regulation can be super helpful. And it can be anything from the way to brace a crane or the way to carry a tool on your body when you're going upstairs to make sure that it doesn't fall out of your pocket or something and hurt somebody. But they're all over the place, and knowing where to look and which codes may apply are important, which really brings you back to considering the complexities of who can you sue, what can you sue them for, and what do you have to prove. Seriously considering hiring a lawyer for cases like that, because a lawyer that's experienced in construction accidents is going to know the places to look. They're going to know the questions to ask. They're going to know the laws and the regulations to look at to see if they can get a jump start or a head start on proving liability. But it's not always just was a safety code violated or an ordinance violated or who can I sue. There are also other avenues that we look at to see if liability may attach to it. So Mark mentioned earlier product defects. Was the product being used that hurt somebody? Was there a manufacturing defect, a design defect? Was it altered in some way by the person who purchased it that made it defective and dangerous? And who's responsible for those different things? Yeah,
that's a great question, because first you have to look at how did the injury occur, of course. And it could be that if a piece of equipment was brought in from the outside and a worker was injured, that you could have a remedy against whoever was responsible for that equipment. Years ago, I remember I had a case where a worker had rented a scaffold from one of the big stores we're all familiar with, and had brought it onto the site, and the scaffold collapsed and he fell about 30 feet and shattered both his legs and couldn't work anymore. And we sued both the product manufacturer who made the scaffold, but we also sued the company that rented the scaffold. I remember actually going out to the store and taking videos of the scaffolds that they kept outside in the rain where they got all rusted and subjected to the elements.
Yeah, and sometimes you may rent or purchase a piece of equipment, and then if there's multiple companies working at this one place, then let's just say, I'll give you an example. So probably, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I had this case, and it was an odd piece of equipment. It was called a tree debarker. Basically, this huge machine, you would take a pine tree that had been cut down, and you would run the pine tree through this machine that had these big teeth that would then just rip the bark off of the pine tree. And you'd have this debarked log, and they'd take it and they'd put it on a container ship and ship it overseas, right? This was down in southeast Georgia where there's tons of pine trees. Well, the company that was operating the machine was different than the company that owned the machine, and different from the company that placed the machine and put it together on this piece of property where they were debarking these pine trees. The company that bought the machine removed a safety cage from around the motor, but they left a sticker on there that just said, cut the power before you work on this particular area. And what would happen is these pine bark chips would get in there where the machine was, and it would stop the motor. And so you'd have to turn the machine off and then go over there and clean the chips out and then turn it back on. Well, the guy that was our client turned the machine off and then went over there, and his hand touched the belt that would run around this wheel on the motor, and it just had all this tension in it, and it caught it and it pulled his hand in there, and it didn't cut his fingers off, but it basically burned them off because of the heat and the friction. Well, come to find out, this machine had a safety cage that was around it originally. And the company that bought it removed the safety cage. And the safety cage was there for the very reason to protect somebody's hands from that belt and pulley, right? So when we thought we had a defective product case, it turned out to be negligence on the part of the machine owner, which was a different company. So like really having to dig in and find out these details matter a lot, because if you don't get the right people and you don't get the right theory of the case, then you're probably going to lose the case.
Yeah, and in fact, digging into the details is the most important part of the case, because a lot of times on construction sites, you have contracts that are signed between the different entities on there, and they adopt these types of contracts that use boilerplate language that say, these people are responsible for this and these people are responsible for that, and that can be a real source of information in determining who is the right party to sue.
Yep. And last but not least, in construction injury cases, we have what's called premises liability claims that sometimes apply. So, talk about the situations where you would look at a premises case as opposed to a more traditional negligence case.
Yeah, so every owner or occupier of property in Georgia has a duty to keep it safe. But what happens if someone who owns the property gives over possession of it temporarily to a construction company? I remember several cases I've had where someone who actually owned the property turned over the property to a contractor who then created a hazard that injured the owner, and then it became a fight as to whether that construction company was a premises occupier or not.
Yeah, basically, did they have control over that premises at the time that somebody got injured? So lots of things to think about when somebody's injured on a construction site or in a building where construction is going on. But if you don't get anything else from this video, just get this, that it's exceedingly important to get a lawyer that is skilled and experienced in construction zone accidents if you are injured in a construction zone, because there's so many things that you need to look into from a legal perspective, from a factual perspective, and know how to tie those things together. So anything else about construction zone accidents, Mark?
Only that, a lot of times the folks who are hurt on construction site accidents are people who really use their bodies a lot in their work, and an injury to them can really have a big, devastating effect on their ability to earn a living.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, we appreciate you spending time with us today. If you have any comments or suggestions about the video, put it in the comment section below. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we will see you in a few weeks. As personal injury lawyers, we love what we do, and we're happy to share the experience we've gained in personal injury law. To help our family, friends, and YouTube subscribers, we've shared over 300 personal injury videos covering various injury topics. So if you'd like to gain more knowledge that may help protect yourself or a loved one when you're on the roads or out in public, check out our channel or view our playlist of shorts for quick personal injury tips.